My Russian colleagues, I am delighted in be here today with you. Even thought it's not exactly to be here, but it is to be with you. As invited, we will have a kind of lecture or something that I will read. Perhaps you have already read the text, but I will read it now, so we can think about it. And perhaps our experience will be of mutual interest and mutual questions. I will try to talk about the practical ethos of transformations and invariants. Dr. Bion once suggested that psychoanalysis already existed as a thought without a thinker, floating in the air, waiting for its thinkers, much before being thought by Dr. Freud. And thus psychoanalysis was discovered rather than invented. After all, the basic necessity to knowledge that is a naturally animal, a basic instinct, all pair with nourishment and breathing and reproduction. All those things are of the same kind, even though we do not know what kind of thing it is. But anyway, this basic necessity is inflicted to us humans as a kind of anxiety, an anxiety described by Aristotle and intuited as his master Plato suggested. It was something that was not sensed by our sensory apparatus, but it was there. This basic necessity to knowledge could be intuited, it could be apprehended, and it can be used. This basic necessity to knowledge was displayed by some external manifestations, even though they are fragmentary. Thousands of years produced generations and generations of thinkers who appeared in the guise of mothers, of prophets, and of mystics, who apprehended what is now known as psychoanalysis in many ways. Each people in its own culture dealt with this basic necessity as it could be, or as it can be. Who, either in Russia or outside Russia, will dare to deny that Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, Tolstoy's War and Peace, Stravinsky's Springtime Rites, or Shostakovich's Leningrad Symphony did not transform into words and music what psychoanalysis as a tool tried to put into individuals' communication and use. Sigmund Freud brought a funneling of the centuries-old apprehensions of truth and mind to the service of the suffering individual. It is in this wake that Bion made this attempt still more explicit with his use of the mathematical theory of invariants and transformations. Some people developed, at the cost of experience of pain, a spatial way to approach this realm, which we can say it's an ultra and infrasensual realm, or perhaps it's an immaterial realm, which psychoanalysis tries to embrace. Goals of psychoanalytic research were established, such as Oedipus, the mystery of creation with mother, father, and sibs, as well as still closer scrutiny of relationships between mother and baby. Some tongues, now I am talking about cultural ways, some language and tongues seem to me better suited to express feelings, to express emotions, and to express affects. I would single German and Russian tongues due to their plasticity, that may be a little nearer this specific aim, because this is not exactly the aim of language. Language was not created to the purpose to express feelings, emotions, and affects. For example, people in Russia are able to call its nation, so to say, as Mother Russia. I would say that this is an indication, very primitive, of the spirit of the Russian people. A verbal formulation already explored from other disciplines such as literature, sociology, that may be, in the case that it had not been yet, the object of your local Russian analytic research, or the analytic research that you make in Russia. In other places, people say about their mother tongue, and in Russia you say Mother Russia. Here, in this expression, the psychoanalytic ethos was put into emphasis, perhaps unwittingly, because we are talking about unconscious processes. Well, I wish you Russian colleagues that the few indications about the improvements in the psychoanalytic technique or observation of the psychoanalytic act made by Dr. Bion with his application of the mathematical theory of transformations and invariants can prove not to be a waste of time, and you can emotionally profit from it as well as your patients. In the very kind invitation from the organizers of this meeting, a personal contact ensued, and taking into account the generosity in coping with my personal limitations to make a much longer travel to Russia, this form of communication was chosen. One cannot say that the so-called globalization have only bad effects. In our contact with the organizers, I knew that you are keen in the definitions that I tried to advance in a recent dictionary dealing with Dr. Bion concepts. So I will not bother you with those definitions, but instead I will try to illustrate one of their possible uses in practice. Please notice, I am not branding the use, but one of many possible uses. Well, with this I am trying to make an example of the first use of our very issue, transformations and invariants. I sincerely hope that this possible use keeps and maintains fit the invariants. This is the second use. To some readers, what I have to say will be understood with the synthetic form that I am trying to tell you now. A Brazilian popular dito is, to understand people, a half word shall suffice. But I cannot take for sure my ability to communicate is enough. So I beg your patience to go on. Transformations and invariants have their sense in the very term used to point them. That is, their counterparts in reality are self-evident, or they are obvious. The problem is, obvious is usually the most difficult thing to see. But one may keep in one's mind that transformations implies in different forms through what physics call the arrow of time. It's endowed by the ethos of movement, of what is transient, from one place to another place during the arrow of time. Transformations, that which goes from one form to another form, so transform, have the qualities of manifestations of expressions in the outside material world. To the philosophical-minded reader, transformations applies to the realm of phenomena. Quite in the obverse, the intrinsic quality of the invariance is its truthful real nature. It does not belong to the world of appearances. As such, invariance cannot be grasped by human sensuous apparatus. It corresponds to the numinous realm, to that which Bion called all, and Freud called not known, which is more popular named the unconscious, or in German, the Unbewusst. Wilfred Bion had to resort to a term which is familiar to theology: faith. Faith is understood in a strict sense with no penumbra of meanings. It's a faith that truth exists. He taught this specific faith is necessary to extricate oneself amidst the myriad of transformations and glimpse transiently and invariant. Transformations are much more easier to grasp by the commonplace view. Nevertheless, they have a hallucinated character in a variable extent, and this hallucinated character must be seen by the psychoanalytic view. Mrs. Melanie Klein, who enjoyed a long career in the analytic movement, as well as Professor Elliot Jacques, who was a close friend of Dr. Bion, by the way, have the opportunity of a talk, of a chat. Professor Elliot Jacques told her that the book, which was up to be printed with the title Envy, should be named Envy and Gratitude instead. Mrs. Klein was a gentle analyst who appreciated young pupils, and she eagerly accepted Professor Jacques' grasp, and today's analysts have a more precise title to that which seems to me one of the most important books in the psychoanalytic movement. Dr. Bion did not have one who could dare to suggest him that the title of his book should be Transformations and Invariances. For his contributions were too soon, according to Dr. Bion himself, and few early observers such as Dr. James Grotstein or Dr. Mate Blanco, paradoxically enshrined and object of hostile attacks, the two contradictory tendencies at the same time. The result was his ratings were not understood. We have again a practical example of transformations and invariants, two kinds of seemingly different transformations: enshrinement, idealization in one side, and hostile attacks in the other side, belying lack of apprehension. Lack of apprehension is the invariance behind the transformations. Consequently, Bion's contributions took more time to be really used and known vis-a-vis with Freud or Klein's contributions, with lessening or perhaps with no idealization and no iconoclast postures. Two sides, two transformations of the same coin. Contempt, the invariant. I am putting this forward right from the start, because the tendency to overvalue transformations at the expense of invariants have been to oversimplify the theory, which makes it more palatable. But it also sent, that is, transformed, the theory into superficial appearance academic psychology, which is perhaps psychoanalytic and perhaps even anti-psychoanalytic. An analyst that I knew used to say, all things in the world are transformations, and there was no place to invariants. Invariants are functions of the personality. If analysis proceeds, previously unseen invariance obtrudes out from the unknown, allowing for cycles of transformations. The invariants are amenable to be roughly and incompletely formulated by the human abilities to formulate things. If this formulation is minimally good enough, invariants perform the function of factors to the ensuing, previously unseen ones. I avoid the term new because the invariants are already existent. Invariants are a thought waiting for a thinker. It's new to our human perception. Invariants are one from the void and formless infinite, as Bion said, from the unconscious. Invariants are not new in terms of human species, and they are new to the specific personality which is under scrutiny when one is making psychoanalysis. The cycles of transformations are a development